If there is a Tesla parked in your garage or stock in your portfolio, hold your breath. You might be holding the only ticket to the biggest wealth transfer of the next decade. Imagine getting into Amazon in 1997, but with rocket fuel. We're talking about the SpaceX IPO. Elon Musk promised to give you, the loyal Tesla shareholder, priority access to buy SpaceX stock at the initial price. But wait, before you celebrate, there is a massive problem. Technically, Elon might not be able to find you. Based on my deep dive into the legal minefield, only 3 specific types of people will actually get on this list. Are you a ghost shareholder hidden behind your broker? Or are you a visible owner? By 2026, this distinction could cost you millions. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to secure your seat on the SpaceX rocket before it leaves without you. The first group is the hardcore, long-term shareholders who stood by Elon Musk through his darkest moments without wavering. The second group is Tesla owners, people with the most transparent identities and, operationally, the easiest group to identify and prioritize. And the third group is an internal community of shared interests, quietly benefiting under the umbrella of various incentive and compensation programs. So the real question becomes this. Is Musk's ticket a genius-level act of ultimate gratitude toward his believers? Or is it simply a beautiful slogan that collapses under real-world execution? But before we begin, we need to agree on one thing. SpaceX is not just a satellite launch company. It is the largest, most complex, and potentially most monopolistic physical machine in the history of commercial humanity. If you ask Wall Street what the most anticipated financial event of 2026 is, there's only one answer: the SpaceX IPO. Current market signals suggest that SpaceX is standing on the edge of going public. While the company has not officially filed any SEC documents, multiple indicators point to a planned IPO sometime in mid to late 2026. So why would Musk choose 2026? To understand that, we need to look at SpaceX's financial logic and its operational milestones. By 2026, SpaceX's 3 core pillars are expected to enter a phase of resonance. First, Starship. This super-heavy rocket, designed to slash the cost of reaching orbit from thousands of dollars per kilogram down to potentially tens of dollars, is expected by then to have completed multiple successful orbital flights and payload deployments. Once Starship is fully operational, SpaceX effectively controls the only true railway from Earth to space. Second, Starlink. By 2026, Starlink's cash flow is expected to be highly stable. Large-scale deployment of the V3 satellites will unlock massive bandwidth capacity. The global market of hundreds of millions of users will no longer be just a vision. It will translate into real, recurring monthly subscription revenue. And finally, the hidden ace, space-based data centers. As we've discussed before, the ultimate destination of computing power is space. And SpaceX is the only player that simultaneously controls the transportation system, the communications pipeline, and the energy advantages required to make that possible. When a company that owns the interplanetary railway, the global data pipeline, and a future computing refinery prepares to go public, this is no ordinary IPO. Even at valuations discussed in private markets today, far below the mythical trillion-dollar figures often mentioned, the scale of capital raised could still reach tens of billions of dollars. This wouldn't be a normal listing. It would be a global reshuffling of capital itself.
And just as this massive ship was preparing to dock, Musk dropped a bombshell. He publicly stated that if any of his companies were to go public, priority would be given to shareholders of his other companies, especially long-term Tesla shareholders. Loyalty deserves loyalty. If you're a retail investor who has held Tesla stock for the long term, you might not need to stand in line at all. You could potentially receive SpaceX shares at the original IPO price. And that matters because in the traditional financial world, retail investors have always been the ones left eating scraps at IPO banquets. Here's how a typical large IPO works. Investment banks, acting as underwriters, allocate most of the discounted pre-IPO shares to large sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, insurance companies, and ultra-high net worth individuals writing 8-figure checks. By the time the stock actually starts trading, the price has often already multiplied several times. Retail investors can only buy in on the secondary market, at the top. What Musk is trying to challenge is this decades-old game. He wants to bypass Wall Street's middlemen and hand the wealth creation opportunity directly to his retail army. But pulling this off is far harder than it sounds, and the core challenge boils down to just one word: identification. As a publicly listed company, does Tesla actually know who its long-term loyal shareholders are? The answer may surprise you. In reality, it doesn't. Most retail investors' shares are held in brokerage accounts: Fidelity, Schwab, Interactive Brokers, and so on. On Tesla's official shareholder registry, what shows up are the names of these brokerages, not the individual investors behind them. That creates a massive technical bottleneck. How would SpaceX verify that you've continuously held Tesla shares for the past 3 years or 5 years? How would it prove that you didn't sell at some point in between? And then it gets even more complicated when you add globalization. What if you're a Tesla shareholder based in Asia or Europe? As an American aerospace company, does SpaceX even have the legal authority or the practical ability to sell IPO shares to you? We've seen similar attempts before. Airbnb, for example, tried to reward hosts during its IPO. But due to legal and identity verification complexities, the program was ultimately limited to US residents only. If SpaceX were forced into the same constraint, then Musk's promise of loyalty rewards would become little more than a beautifully drawn pie in the sky for millions of Tesla supporters worldwide. Beyond technical identification, there's an even more sensitive issue: legal risk. Specifically, how do you define loyalty? Some voices in the market have speculated whether Musk might use shareholder votes, such as support for his compensation packages, as a loyalty filter. If that were to happen, both SpaceX and Tesla could face a wave of class action lawsuits. From a legal standpoint, shareholder rights are equal. You cannot punish a long-term shareholder simply because they voted against management. If loyalty turns into a test of obedience, Musk's plan would immediately come under immense regulatory and compliance pressure. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and turn on the notification bell. The prevailing analysis is that Musk is more likely to pursue a hybrid solution, using a third-party identity verification platform that combines proof-of-share ownership with verified Tesla owner data to build a comprehensive loyalty score. SpaceX's IPO may be the least likely IPO in history to ever break issue price. Under traditional valuation models, a $1.5 trillion valuation against annual revenue of roughly $15 billion looks like an absurd bubble. But SpaceX is not valued on what it earns today. It's valued on physical control of Earth's orbit. As we've discussed before, once Starlink achieves global dominance, it becomes the world's only internet infrastructure that is not constrained by ground-based fiber. And once Starship begins regular missions to the moon, SpaceX becomes the only interplanetary logistics provider. So, for an investor, if this moment truly arrives in 2026, what should you do?
First, lower your expectations. Even if this plan is implemented, the sheer number of participants means that any individual retail investor's allocation will likely be small. This is probably not a get-rich-overnight opportunity, but it is a chance to access a core asset. Second, pay attention to your holding behavior. If Musk truly emphasizes long-term ownership, frequent short-term trading before 2026 could disqualify you. In investing, the most expensive cost is often not losses, but impatience. Impatience can cost you a ticket into a higher-level game. So stay rational, stay disciplined, and remember, even though we're talking about priority access, all investments carry risk. SpaceX's vision is grand, but aerospace is inherently uncertain. A single rocket failure or a sudden regulatory shift could trigger a sharp valuation pullback. Ultimately, what the SpaceX IPO and Tesla shareholder priority debate really reveals is a profound turning point in our era. For the past century, capital markets have been cold, governed by balance sheets and compound interest formulas. Musk is attempting to introduce a new variable: emotion and loyalty. He is trying to prove that in a world defined by volatility, the strongest defense is not complex financial hedging, but the most primitive force of all: trust between people. He has turned his companies into a massive community. In this community, you are not just an investor. You are a pioneer, a co-builder of a shared dream. Of course, this logic carries enormous risk. When a company's value becomes tightly bound to the personal cult of its founder, the structure can be both incredibly strong and extremely fragile. But no matter what, the 2026 IPO will become a textbook case. It's not just about the distribution of money. It's about how, in an age of technological explosion, we define returns, how we define support, and how we collectively participate in humanity's journey toward the stars. If Musk truly keeps his promise, if tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of retail investors actually receive SpaceX IPO shares, this moment will mark a visible crack in the traditional financial order. And through that crack, we won't just see wealth shifting hands.
We'll see individual power amplified to an unprecedented degree, controversial, exhilarating, and deeply transformative. So what do you think? Is SpaceX prioritizing Tesla shareholders a genius act of gratitude, or just another brilliant marketing spectacle? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. True wealth is often hidden in the fog of volatility. Our mission is to see clearly into the futures that are already unfolding. Thanks for watching. This is Money Daily. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and turn on the notification bell. And as always, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.